When you think about government, you probably picture a pyramid, right? Power at the top, flowing all the way down to the bottom. But what if you just flipped that whole thing on its head? Today, we're going to break down a blueprint for a government that's built from the family up. Let's dive in and see how it's supposed to work. So, right out of the gate, our source material lays out this huge contrast. On one side, you've got what it calls worldly governments, your classic top down control. And on the other, this model of God's kingdom, which is totally bottom up. But what does a bottom up government actually look like in practice? Well, to get it, you've got to start with the smallest, most important piece of the puzzle. And that brings us right here to the foundation. The entire system, the whole thing, rests on just one role. It's the absolute bedrock of the structure. The elder. So who exactly is an elder? Well, forget everything you know about elections or appointments. In this system, an elder is simply the eldest man in a family. That's it. Their entire job is to represent their own kids and their kids' families. Authority isn't something you win or get assigned. It's just based on family. Now, the source uses a really powerful word for the elder, king. But, and this is a huge but, their kingdom is their own house. Their authority literally stops at their front door. It's this super localized power that is the foundational principle for everything else we're about to see. Okay, so you've got all these individual family units, each with its own elder. So how do they connect with each other? That's where we get the very first layer of organization, the gathering of tens. And this introduces a brand new role, the deacon. And here's what's so important. A deacon isn't some manager who gets assigned to a group from the outside. No, a deacon is also an elder. They're handpicked by their peers, by the other elders, to serve that little group of families. See how the power is still flowing up? The elders are choosing their own minister. So why do they even get together? Well, it's really about connection and taking care of each other. The source calls it practicing pure religion, which basically means if someone in the group has a need, the group helps out. The whole goal is to build this tight-knit, trusting community, and that includes managing any resources they decide to pull together. And that brings us to a really key point, the money. This whole system runs on free will offerings. No taxes, no mandatory dues, nothing like that. The source says this is on purpose, to make sure there's no man lording over other man. It's all a voluntary network of support. Okay, so a group of 10 families, that makes sense. You can wrap your head around that. But how does this system actually scale up to handle hundreds or even thousands of people? Well, that takes us to the next level of the network and the role of the bishop. And you can probably see the pattern here, can't you? Just like before, the power flows up. A bishop is, you guessed it, also an elder, and they're handpicked by the deacons to serve them. So a bishop is basically a minister for the ministers, chosen by the very people they're going to oversee. At this level, things get a little different. The focus shifts from the day-to-day needs of individual families to the health of the network itself. The bishop's meeting is for the deacons to support each other and to talk about what the source calls kingdom government affairs. This is where the bigger picture stuff happens. So let's just watch how this scales up, right? You start with one deacon serving about 10 families, which then scales to one bishop who oversees the ministers for 100 families. And from there, it can just keep expanding into the thousands. You get this massive, interconnected network that's still built, fundamentally, from the ground up. So, we've seen all the mechanics, the how, from the elder all the way up. But why? Why build this whole thing in the first place? What's the end game here? Well, the source material is pretty direct about the goal. It says the purpose is to free his people from the bondage of worldly systems. In other words, this entire structure is designed as an alternative, a way for people to become independent from the systems that run the rest of the world. So, what are the supposed perks of this model? Well, the source claims it's simple, it's efficient, and that it's aligned with the nature of life. But maybe the most fascinating claim is that once you get it all set up, the system is designed to basically run itself. But here's the thing. According to the source, you can't just jump into this. It says, adopting this path requires a huge shift in how you see the world. A person first has to believe they're in bondage to the current systems before they can even start to humbly look for a new way. And in the end, the source material kind of zooms all the way out from the nuts and bolts to ask the biggest question of all. What is life all about? It frames this whole government model not just as a different way to organize people, but as the answer to that question. It's a blueprint for a life with purpose and meaning and freedom. And it kind of leaves you wondering, could the way we organize ourselves really be the key to what our lives are all about?